but I'm certainly gonna hate I that's I don't know.
Okay, how do you rebut the black market argument?
The black market argument, I can just say things like if you legalize it, it's okay. Because to actually sell your order, you have to go through like proper channels which they will screen and test you. But what if you fail the test? You cannot donate. But you want to donate.
So you
can only move to the black market.
Okay.
Usually why, yeah.
No,
Because the black market argument.
sorry, go room. I'll go back.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Wanna go? You want hear me or not?
I can.
Say that.
Accept or reject?
Yeah, accepts the definition provided, and if you don't
If it's
challenge
unreasonable,
it,
reject it.
if you don't
But if it's
reject
unreasonable,
it,
change it.
and then
Yeah.
Okay, of course, of
Thank you.
course.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Of course. So yeah,
Which school, sir?
Yes. SMK item.
Yeah, Itam. And then there's Puan Jane Steven.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Teacher, you're from SMK
Telok Bahang.
Telok Bahang. Okay.
That's right.
You. And then Puan Rohani binti Ismail, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And you're from SMK Batu Kawan.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. SMJK Chung Ling, your reply speech is going to be done by?
It is going to be done by the leader of the opposition, which is me.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Government team, who will be doing the reply speech? All right, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, a very good evening to everyone who is present here today. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Puan Sumadi, and I am your speaker for today. It is with great pleasure that I welcome all of you to the 2021 State Level Datuk Wira Dr. Abdul Rahman Arshad Parliamentary Style Debate. Helping me is our timekeeper, Puan Nur Suziani binti Muhammad Dahlan, and Puan Nur Amalina binti Muhammad Nur, member of the House. Before we proceed, allow me to first read out the rules and regulations of the debate. Okay, marks will be recorded based on the following: content, 40 points; language, 20 points; manner, 20 points; strategy, 20 points, which add up to 100 points. For the reply speech, content, 20 points; language, 10 points; manner, 10 points; and strategy, 10 points, which add up to 50 points. The time allocated for the speakers are as follows. 8 minutes are given for each speaker to debate the motion. The first and the second speaker may introduce and propose as many arguments. The third speaker from both teams shall not introduce any new arguments. Their role is mainly to rebut. While the debater is speaking, the opposition team can offer point of information or formal interjections after the first minute until the 7th minute within a time limit of 15 seconds. The debater may accept or decline it. A debater must give or take at least 2 POI during the course of the debate. Giving and taking point of information should be done politely. A debater is required to show his or her blue card on screen while putting forth the POI, and he or she must wait until the debater from opponent team who are presenting to accept or deny POI. Now for the bell will be rung once after the first minute. And at the 7th minute. At the 8th minute, the bell will be rung twice to remind the speaker to end his or her speech. For the reply speech, the bell will be rung once at the 3rd minute and twice at the 4th minute to signal that the time is up. The adjudicators will ignore any points raised when the stipulated time is up. No heckling, harassment, or barracking is allowed at any time during the debate. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to have with us our esteemed panel of adjudicators. Leading the team is Mr. Ang Ben Chun from SMK Itam. Other panel members are Puan Jane Steven from SMK Teluk Bahang and Puan Rohani binti Ismail from SMK Batu Kawan. Representing the government are Miss Maria Aman binti Aznizam as the Prime Minister, Mr. Linkeshwar Anak Lelaki Muthukumaran as the Second Minister, and Mr. Naresh Kumar Dey as the Third Minister. They are supported by Ms. Dayashri Kartikesan and Mr. Vishwesh Anak Lelaki Kumarisan.
Excuse me, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
The third speaker from side government is me, Dayashri Kartikesan.
The third one.
Yes, and Naresh will be reserved.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
All right, thank you.
Now representing the opposition are Mr. Tan Ji Kai as the opposition leader, Mr. Eugene Chia Shi Hong as the second opposition member, and Mr. Oh Yon Heng as the third opposition member. They are supported by Mr. Nathaniel Lai Jia Lee and Mr. Tan Chiang Lung. The motion for today is the House would legalize the sale of human organs. Now, we will proceed with today's debate. Okay, members of the House, I would like to call upon the Right Honorable Prime Minister to deliver her argument.
Am I audible, ladies and gentlemen? Am I audible? Okay. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon I bid to the honorable adjudicators, responsible timekeepers, respected opponents, and my beloved team members. Today we will be debating on the motion this House would legalize the sales of human organs. Before I further continue to my speech, I would like to introduce the flow of it. Firstly, I will be introducing the team members. Secondly, I will be defining the motion. Thirdly, I will be introducing the stance, status quo, and the burden to proof from side government. Fourth, I will be stating our policy. Fifth is our first point of argument. And last but not least, I will be summarizing up my speech. Now, firstly, I am the first speaker from side government, and I will be defining the motion, introducing the stance, status quo, burden to prove, our policy and the point of argument. My second speaker will be rebutting against the first speaker of opposition and will be introducing two more new points to this debate. My third speaker will be concluding this debate and will be rebutting against side opposition. Let's go into the definitions, ladies and gentlemen. We from side government focus on these three keywords: legalize, sales, and human organs. So what can we define from the word legalize? Legalize is to allow something by law in the country or state by the government. Sales. Sales is the quantity items sold in a market. And last but not least, human organs, a collection of tissues that structurally form a functional unit specialized to perform a particular function. Your heart and lungs are examples of organs. Now, introducing the stance, status quo, and the burden to prove from side government, our stance is that we from side government believe that permitting this motion in Malaysia brings more welfare to the country than adversity. Why is that? I will be elaborating that in my speech. Now, what is the status quo, ladies and gentlemen? What is the status quo of those in need of organ transplant today? According to the New Straits Times in 2017, nearly 21,778 people, including those in the final stages of organ failure, are currently waiting for organ transplant. If this is the case in 2017, there will surely be an uproar in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Now, our burden to prove from side government is that there must be a change in the status quo, which is by lowering the cases of those in need of organ transplant. And now moving on to the policies that will be stated by side government, we focus on these 5. Firstly, everything is done by and in government hospitals. There will not be private hospitals, and hospitals not recognized by the government are not allowed to enact on this transplant. So why government hospitals only? This gives the government to regulate and monitor the process easily and identify who the vendors and consumers are. Secondly is medical board sets the price. Why is that? This is because they are more knowledgeable and rational in setting prices for the public. Third, consent is definitely required. And how is that? We from side government propose for a contractual consent, meaning both vendors and consumers have to sign an agreement and they have the right to know each other. Why is that? This prevents exploitation of consumers, and there must be no mirrored parties. Fourth is that only local citizens only. Let's take the only country in the world that legalizes this motion, Iran. They only allow their citizens to sell their organs to avoid tourism transplant, which will be further elaborated by my second speaker. Last but not least, age limit. What is the age limit? What do we mean by age limit? Is that only adults can sell their organs. And in Malaysia, the adult age is 21 years old and above. Now, moving on to my first point from side government is that we aim to bring a litteracy to the black market. So why is that? Let's look at the study. Let's look at the news reported by the New Straits Times again on the 9th of August 2020. Recently, Malaysia became the top tier for organ trafficking in Southeast Asia. And how is that? Stricken families from all over the globe, including Malaysians themselves, will learn to sell their organs to get an income to at least provide themselves or their families a form of incentives. Imagine how unsafe the surgery was to get these organs, and the people are to put their health on the line. And that is why we from side government are a better option, because we give you a cleaner, a safer, cleaner way of getting your organs, and a safer way because we have professional surgeons taking them out. And of course, If side government were to rebut saying that you cannot bring an end to the black market, yes, we agree. However, we from side government focus to create a deterrence of the cases of people visiting the black market the black market. Now, I would like to summarize my speech. I've already stated the definitions, stance, status quo, burden to proof, our policies, point of agreement, and with that, are there any POIs? None. And with that, we from side government strongly stands with, oh, yes, accepted.
It is naive for the government to assume that regulated markets would be well-regulated markets. In this epoch of modernization and globalization, corruption is not a rare occurrence anymore, and thus ineffective regulatory infrastructures. It is reasonable to worry that kinds of harm that occur to kidney vendors in unregulated markets would also befall them in some regulated markets. It will be susceptible for bribes and eligibility for kidney sellers to be rubber-stamped in order that a profit is made.
Sorry, sir, you have surpassed the 15-second set for the point of intervention. I will not answer that. And with that, I would like to end my speech. Before that, with that, I already stated the definitions, stance, status quo, and the burden to prove from side government, our policies, point of argument, and with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you, and assalamualaikum for being here.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now, I would like to call upon the leader of the opposition to state his case.
Of course, please excuse the leader of the opposition. Well, before the leader of the opposition starts presenting his case, we would like to make a couple of disclaimers. He first things first like to apologize if there are any technical difficulties that arise during the speeches made by opposition members. He also like to tell the adjudicators that since we do not have colored cards, we will be using improvised colored books or colored papers to represent yes, no, POI, of course. Now, greetings, fellow adjudicators, Madam Speaker, the respectable government, and members of the floor. The opposition would first things first like to say that they reject the definition of the word sale proposed by the government. The opposition proposes the definition of sale as the exchange of a commodity for money and the action of selling something. Now, I shall lay out the roles of members of the opposition. I shall be rebutting the false arguments made by the Prime Minister and introducing 4 substantive points, and my deputy will do the same. However, he will rebut the Deputy Prime Minister, and my third speaker shall be rebutting the unethical motion, shall be rebutting the points made by the government that he believes is unethical. Now, let me start off with a quote from my favorite movie, Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could. They didn't stop to think if they should. This is a segue to my first point, the opposition's first point, that the buying and selling of human organs should never be deemed ethical, even in spite of the larger role played by a state apparatus under such a framework, because it will always penalize the weakest and the poorest of our country. Financial gradients are inherently exploitive, with the poorest in society being the ones who come forward as sellers every time. The commodification of donation of organs would essentially pretend an unfortunate reality whereby those in dire need of organs are prioritized based on their ability to pay, rather than the need. This will also bring about a creeping normality in society, that if you give those in poverty the ability to sell their organs, you will prompt people to ask, why do people in poverty feel that they are allowed to ask for assistance when they have a kidney? You're unable to pay your rent. You cannot put food on the table. You have a kidney, don't you? You have an eye, don't you? You have a liver, don't you? Why don't you sell your organs before you come asking for help? It will make the selling of organs less of an option in the near future, less of an option, and more of a financial and even legal demand. In the future, people would say, well, you haven't sold your liver yet. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to help you. You haven't done what you could. Now, the second point the opposition will bring is that the legalization of the selling of organs will incite murder. This is common sense. People will kill other people just to retrieve their organs for sale. And making the selling of organs legal will only make it easier for such a trade to happen, possibly making this a common scenario as compared to trading in the black market. Allowing legal sales would lead to organ harvesting. People would be kidnapped and butchered for their organs. This would merely compound the chronic issue of human trafficking, which has infested Malaysian society for far too long. Now, the government, the Prime Minister mentioned the Iranian system. Let me check if there are points of information. None, all right? On paper, the Iranian system seems like a good solution to the organ shortage, especially considering there have not been a waiting list for kidneys since 1999. However, the system has many shortcomings. 70% of the people who donate kidneys are poor and impoverished, bringing back to my point in my first point, meaning that the system exploits, once again, it exploits poor individuals, the same population targeted for the black market. Many have been coerced by their family to sell their organs to make ends meet. Some may even be complicit in organ selling just to ensure they are able to put food on the table. It is unclear if the ability to sell organs legally has diminished the black market, as claimed by the Prime Minister. Some doctors have argued that the system just makes it easier for black market to function. Now for my fourth point. Selling organs doesn't necessarily make you rich. Sadly, for the majority of sellers in Iran and Pakistan, selling a kidney does not result in the significant economic benefit of which they dreamed. Often it is associated with a decline in general health. God gave us 2 kidneys for a reason. All right? Many fall back into debt, often compounded by the inability to work following the selling of their organs due to ill health. In Pakistan, let me give you an example. In Pakistan, many individuals donate kidneys to release themselves from poverty and bonded slavery, but have inefficient capital to make a new life and often return back to debt. Recovery after a surgery can take between 2 and 12 weeks, 2 and 12, depending on surgery, individual recovery, and type of work a donor will be resumed. Now, before I move on to my next point, there's a POI. Is there? I've been informed by my government, by my opposition members there have been POI. Yes, I accept. Green card, yes.
So, you mentioned that you mentioned that according to So what about the direct? What about the direct?
15 seconds is up.
Here.
Oopsies. I'm sorry. My deputy will answer that. For my last point, donors need to rest after being discharged from the hospital. They also need help during the first week or 2 if they have children or elderly parents to care for and with day-to-day domestic tasks. Considering the people who opt for selling their organs aren't really aren't really rich. They work 9 to 5. It is safe to say that missing 1 or 2 weeks bare minimum of work will get them fired. They will be unemployed if it hinders their work performance. Now, seeing that I have 1 minute left, I would like to once again re-emphasize my rebuttal of the Prime Minister's main argument that we will regulate the markets. In this epic, once again, I know it's repetitive, I'm sorry. In this epic of modernization and globalization, corruption is not a rare occurrence anymore, and thus ineffective regulatory infrastructures. It is reasonable to worry that kinds of harm that occur to kidney vendors in unregulated markets would also befall to them in some regulated markets. It could be, the market could be susceptible to bribes for the eligibility criteria of a kidney seller to be rubber stamped in order for that profit to be made. So, summarizing the opposition's argument, it is unethical and it is unpractical. Thank you. The opposition leader rests his case.
Thank you, Mr. Opposition Leader. Now, I would like to welcome the second representative of the government.
Am I audible? Thank you. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. A good day I bid to everyone present here today. I am the second speaker from side government and I will be rebutting the points given by the first speaker of side opposition and supporting 2 points which I will be giving out later in my speech. So, let's start off with the rebuttals. So the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition, came up talking about how legalizing the sales of human organs is going to penalize the weaker and the poor and also cause an uproar in terms of murdering, human trafficking and organ trafficking. So let's start off with how government, let's start off with the questions that has to be answered in today's debate. Number one, we know when we talk about human organ sales, the number one thing that comes to mind as of status quo is the black market. So today, once this debate is finished, this house should know which side deals with deterring the black market and controlling it better. And that is why I will prove to you why now we deal with the black market way more better than side opposition. Side opposition keeps on thinking about how the poor and the weaker ones in society will suffer from the legalization of this very motion. So, inside opposition's point of view, the poor people should not sell their organs if given a choice. So they continue to be in poverty, don't get any sort of financial help. And let me also stress that as of status quo, is poverty getting any better, ladies and gentlemen? Poverty is a never-ending cycle. And if you want to be precise, in Malaysia, I don't think situations are any better. So as an alternative of improving people, which also links to my second point, which is financial opportunity, side government would also legalize the sales of human organs to help people who are in need and desperate of some sort of incentive, because through this, people realize the value of organs, and it isn't a sum of say 1,000 or 2,000 ringgit to be talking about Malaysia. So inside opposition's world, the poor should not sell their organs to. Is there a POI?
Yes, there was.
There was? Okay, accepted.
Okay, so the speaker would just like to ask that how sure is the opposition that by legalizing the trade, it wouldn't instead increases the sales in black market, as it was not yet mentioned.
Okay, so let me answer you. Thank you for the POI. When you legalize the sales of human organs, we know that people who go to the black market are also part of our very community. So when you legalize it, you know sales of human organs is under government, under the surveillance of government. And given the policies that my first speaker has brought up, you know the source is clean, You don't have the stigma of having the highest bidder, where very few people can get the organs. If you have spending power, you can get organs in the black market. You don't have factors such as the middlemen who take a big cut, and the sellers hoping for a big amount of money get less than what they expect. There are so many flaws with the black market, which side government deals with efficiently through legalizing this motion. So, talking about people who need to have organs for their transplants, as what my first speaker has stated, the number that she gave was not a small number of 200 or 20 people. It was in thousands. So when thousands of people are desperate and in need of organs, side opposition comes up and says it will penalize the weaker and the poorer. But they don't realize that the poor are not getting to sell their organs and don't get some sort of incentive. And also the people who are supposed to get organs are not getting their organs sufficiently, because as of the current situation, donations and charities are simply not enough, ladies and gentlemen. So let me move on to my points. The question I will be answering is, why is status quo ineffective? Because simply the way we get organs for transplanting processes is through donations and charities. We realize inside government that it isn't enough. So we will legalize this to save lives. Let me quote J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, we are all humans, aren't we? All life is worth and same and also worth to be saved. That is the quote that side government will be standing on. As much as side opposition believes in ethical beliefs, it's time to be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 21st century, and given the advantages for the seller and the buyer, which has been previously explained by me during the process of rebutting side opposition, I have stated how these two parties, the vendors and the buyers, the sellers and the receivers of the organs, both get their advantages respectively. Rather than going out to the black market and participating in all these illegal activities, and if you get caught by the government, being snubbed by the government and being punished, why don't the government move a step ahead and legalize the sales of human organs, so that we have a clean process regulated by all the policies which we have stated through my first speaker. So, second of all, we talk about financial opportunities. Let's talk about the benefits of the sellers and the buyers. See, legalizing is not only one advantage on one side, it helps the seller and the buyer. Let me explain in detail, ladies and gentlemen. When you go to the black market, you expect to get, example, 8,000 from selling your kidney. So, you know that this isn't recognized by the government, so it's not a legal process. It's an illegal process in the black market. So, when you go to the black market and you have the middleman, when he wants to have his cut, his share of linking you to the black market, in that process, these poor and weak people which side government would want to prevent helping them, because the current incentives are not enough. These people are getting weaker inside opposition's world, because through the black market, you're losing more and more money. On side government, we've stated that the medical board sets a fixed price. So even if anything goes wrong, the poorer and the weaker people have their grounds to go against the government and sue them, because we are the ones who set the policy. If there are any flaws, come to us. Why do you need to go and opt for the black market when there's a safer option in the white market? So let me give examples of how poor people can still live a life after donating their organs. So let me give examples of organs, ladies and gentlemen. Your reproductive organs, your stomach, 75% of your liver. These are examples of organs which you can sell off and still live without. When side opposition came out talking about, you are accepted, sir?
Does the government realize that giving away a quarter of your liver would mean that you have a 1 in 200 chance of dying?
Okay, sir. A 1 in 200 chance of dying is there, but death isn't there. Is it okay if you suffer from poverty by not donating your organs and live by the live by ethics, and by the end of the day die of poverty and not being able to help your family financially, or living with a deteriorated health but still living? Please let me stress that you are still living, and you are able to put food for your children on the table at the end of the day. It's a win-win situation, and government realizes the value of sorry sir, I've accepted 2 POIs and my time is going to run out. So government realizes the advantages of the buyer and seller. We save lives as well as increase financial opportunities for both sides of the government, and both sides of buyers and sellers, we control the deterrence of black market way better than side opposition would have to propose. So with that, I believe that for today's motion, this house should legalize and would legalize the sales of human organs for the better of many in the community as of today. With that, I would like to rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Members of the House, please welcome the second representative of the opposition.
Am I audible? Audible, right? Okay. Thank you, Speaker. So the Deputy Leader of Opposition will first rebut against the claims made by the Prime Minister, where there will be more regulation in the medical and surgical sector, and this sort of surgery shall only be performed in government hospitals and not private hospitals. Now, here's a question to the Prime Minister, right? So how does this differ to the process that will be done through donation of organs? Because the topic today is the sale of human organs and not the practice of organ transplant. So how does this differ? Exactly, there is no distinction. Thus, the claims made by the Prime Minister is not relevant to the topic because the topic today is the sales of human organs. Now, in regards to the black market as claimed by the second Prime Minister, by legalizing the sales of human organs, actually it only makes it easier to sell your organs in the black market, in my opinion. So when the selling of organs are legalized, people will be allowed to sell and distribute their organs through the proper channels, which requires someone to go through specific testing and screenings to only have a chance to get the organ. In a sense, this means that only a selected amount of people will be able to sell their organs, and in such cases where selling of organs are closely related to obtaining fast cash, being unable to do so through proper channel will only give them two choices: either not sell or to the black markets, where the safety of the donor, or in his case, the seller, is not guaranteed, and worst case, they might not even get an official pricing for their sold organs. Okay, so after rebutting, right, I'll move to my main points for today, which is that the system is rigged. This is what I want the government to understand. The system is unfair. It is as it is. Legalization of organ sale would open up valuable organs to anyone willing to pay the price. The lower class would rarely receive organs because sellers would only want to sell to the upper classes for higher prices, exorbitant prices, rather than donate for nothing in return. Yes, I see a POI on the floor.
Sir, don't you think by the alternative given by side government, the organs which are being sold would be allocated to the richer and people who can afford organs, and the donations and charity organs, donated organs, can be supplied to the poorer people? Isn't that more effective and saves much more lives?
Okay, so you see, the system is not fair. You know, the lower class will rarely receive organs, as said previously, because sellers who only want to sell to the upper class. Now, saying to the upper class, now it is not fair to the say lower classes, where the donated will be going to the lower classes. Now, as mentioned, moreover, as those willing to sell their organs disproportionately come from an impoverished background, it could be perilous and dangerous for both the seller and the recipient as the organ in question. Up next, the sale of human organs downplays the value of oneself. For example, perhaps the best known philosophical proponent of this view is the 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant. We are obligated always to act in a way that expresses respect for the dignity of humanity. He believed that all of us, no matter on the spectrum of talent, wealth, happiness, or others' regard we may be, have a worth beyond price. Now, Kant maintained that a person's selling one of his internal parts, the example he gave was like a tooth to be transplanted into another's mouth, is always wrong, apparently because this action fails to express proper respect for the seller's own dignity. The action always sends a false message. Kant seems to believe that the seller himself has a mere price. Also, it is naive, as said previously by the leader of opposition, that it is naive, very naive, profoundly naive to assume that regulated markets it's not confirmed to be well-regulated markets, as in this era, corruption is a common occurrence, and through corruption and bribes, anyone can get into the regulated sector, so-called regulated governmental sector, when they are from the black market. You will never know, and we will not take that risk. It could be susceptible to bribes for eligibility criteria for a kidney seller to be endorsed in order that a profit is made. Apologies, I have 3 minutes left and I will not accept at the moment. There are a variety of ambiguities with this framework which ought to be resolved. This framework would subvert the 1974 Human Tissues Act and the Declaration of Istanbul on organ trafficking and transplant tourism, of which Malaysia was a signatory and still is a signatory, which explicitly exhorts the vital importance of prohibiting the sanctioning of organ sales. Now, the deputy leader of opposition has finished his points. Are there any POS on the floor? Seeing none, the deputy leader of opposition will end his speech here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We shall wait for the timer to be reset. Okay, now the House would like to invite the third minister from the government team to represent her views.
Am I audible? All right. So in 3, 2, 1. Salutations I bid to everyone gathered here today. I am the third speaker from side government, and I would like to be rebutting all that has been said by the opposition team, as well as strengthening my team's case. Now, to everyone gathered here today, I would like to give you all a scenario. Okay, imagine you have a kid, right? You have a child and he goes through an accident and he has a ruptured kidney, a ruptured organ. And then while in the waiting room, the doctor comes up saying, I'm sorry, but as of the status quo, I'm sorry, but you have to wait 1 to 2 years for your son to get a kidney. You have to wait for this period of time, which your son might die in the middle. You still have to wait just so that he can get an organ. Now, today, ladies and gentlemen, begs the question, which side handles that situation the best? Now, inside opposition, side opposition keeps complaining and complaining and complaining about all these problems that is inside government, but they fail to bring up a solution for themselves. Inside opposition's world, they would pretty much just let that kid die. But inside government, we at least, I like to deny that, PY, we at least have a solution and we can at least save this kid's life, save your kid's life. Now, the first thing that was brought up by the opposition first speaker was about how unethical we are and how, you know, the poorest will be the sellers, and people would ask, you haven't done what you could have done to get some money. Now, we have brought up the point of financial opportunity, where people will get an incentive to make a living that we from side government, we are at least giving these people a chance to put, for example, take a father who is in poverty, a father who doesn't have enough money to put food on the table for his kid, a father who has nothing left of himself to give them himself so that he can take care of his family, he can take care of his children. Imagine that father, what would he do? Inside opposition, he can't do anything because our opposition, as high and as mighty as they are with their ethics, they have nothing to offer to these people who are going through poverty. They have nothing to offer to these people to help, even an incentive. They have nothing. But we from side government, we are at least giving this person a chance to continue, a chance to live. Side opposition, the first speaker also talked about how murder rates would increase and it would lead to organ trafficking. Now, funny that they brought that up, because understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the black market exists on both sides. The black market is inclusive on both sides. But the question that we beg to ask is that who handles the black market better? Inside government, we are at least giving people, because in the status quo, inside opposition's world, where do people sell off their organs? It's in the black market. But we from side government, we're giving these people a much more legal, a much more cleaner, and a much more safer way to sell off their organs, a much more better way to at least get some money compared to side opposition, where they would, sell off their organs and the middleman would get more money compared to them, and it will be a lose-lose situation. But we from side government, we're giving a win-win situation. We're giving these people, people would opt more for the white market compared to the black market when they're given the chance to do so. They also talked about how in Pakistan there is much more, there's like sales of organs and stuff like that in Pakistan. Now, based on the article of the Kennedy Institute of Ethics, the status quo states that 100 illegal transplants occur in Pakistan per month because selling and buying in Pakistan is illegal. Now, imagine in our world, inside government's world, what would happen to Pakistan? There will be legal sales. There will be a much more ethical, and this is per month, ladies and gentlemen, 100 illegal transplants per month. Imagine inside government's world. This wouldn't happen illegally. This would happen in a much more cleaner, safer way. Now, I'd like to accept your POIS.
Is the government seriously suggesting that the legalization of human organ selling would reduce the black market?
Yes, we're saying that yes, it will lead to the deterrence of the black market, because in the status quo, where do poor people go to sell off their organs? The black market. Whenever you give them a legal place to sell off their organs, where would they go? The hospital, the government hospital. Also, and I hope that answers your POI.
Ganti dengan speaker baru ke, sir? I'll go. Okay. So I will replace the third speaker. So there is 1.5 minutes left. Okay. So I will continue her speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to replace the third speaker of side government due to technical difficulties. So, looking at the conclusion of this debate, I, as the third speaker from side government, have summed up have answered the major questions in the debate today. Why should we legalize the sales of human organs? After all, the main reason is because what is the problem with status quo? Status quo does not have enough supply of organs. Status quo does not cater to the needs of people in poverty. Status quo does not help both of them in any way. So from side government, through the points of how legalizing these sales can save lives and can improve financial opportunity and also cause the deterrence of the black market, has hence proven why we should legalize the sales of human organs after all. And until this very moment, I don't know why, simply don't know why that side opposition cannot catch the point of how this legalization would cause the deterrence of the black market. If we look at status quo, what is the government doing to take down the black market? Human trafficking and organ trafficking is not happening inside government's world. Dear side opposition, it's happening in your world at a very severe level. What is the police doing? What is the government doing? There is nothing significant that can be done. Only if you match the idea of human trafficking, but in a legal way and a cleaner process and a safer way, is it the only effective way that side government and side opposition should see as a very efficient way of decreasing and causing the deterrence of the black market. If we don't do this now, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers of human trafficking would change from 10 to 100 and from hundreds to thousands, and who knows, one day from thousands to millions. And then side opposition would look back and think we should have legalized the sales of human organs, and we should have made sure the white market was on the same level as the black market to compete and cause its deterrence. So with that, I think I have cleared side opposition's questions, and I have supported my team's points enough. With that, I would like to rest my case, and I have never been prouder to support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, the House would like to invite the third minister from the opposition team to represent his view.
Before that, please allow the speaker to adjust his camera, because as he is indeed standing up. Okay, so it's assumed that I am audible, and so a very good evening, a very good afternoon to the honorable adjudicators, opposition team, and of course, fellow members of the floor. I am the third speaker for the opposition today, and I'll mainly be rebutting the points made by the government side as a whole. Now, it is good to know that I will not try to rebut the reduction of black market point, as it wasn't exactly clearly provided, so I don't think it will be fair for me to rebut it as a whole. Instead, I'll be moving on to my next point, which I wish to cover, and is that essentially the entire government team is saying that it's okay for someone to sell their organ. That is an interesting point, as in a society, the government, although allows people to do many things, they also put restrictions to it. You see, if you want to drive, you need to first get a driver's license. To operate and be a doctor, you need to first have a medical license. There's so many things that a government is playing at to stop the people from potentially endangering themselves. So why is it that in this case, the government is not doing so? Again, take Iran, for example. 70% of the people who donate kidneys are impoverished. And so if the government refers to selling of organs as a good way for someone to briefly escape poverty, the government is essentially validating irrational actions of the people who simply wishes to sell their organs, disregarding their health. And this is also giving an excuse to people that think it is okay to sell their organs for money, in a sense, when you are low on cash, be it to support your family, be it to put food on the table, without actually answering the fact that these people could, although given stated that they could be safe, in a sense, also in danger. There is no 100% in organ transplants. Now, moving on, there was a point where the government made that it addresses the issue where there will be more organs to help the people in need. Now, the act of donating an organ is out of kindness and generosity. And this concept will no longer exist if it becomes a business, which in a sense you're selling it, which means that if an organ is sold, people are required to purchase it. And that someone is, of course, the patient. So, okay, so POI accepted.
All right, you're saying that that we from state government are, we're trying to legalize this so that we can help reduce the rate of poverty. What on site opposition? What are you guys doing to reduce the rate of poverty in your side?
Sorry, to answer that, I think you might be misunderstood. We're mainly saying that in a case where such a thing happens, you're not actually, of course, I'll get to this later, but you're not actually reducing poverty, but you're just creating chances for more poverty. Because in a sense, if you look at this, when people sell the organs, okay, I'm sorry, this is actually in my part of the speech and I'll answer it to later. Okay, sorry, I'll answer to it later in my speech. So back to talking about how it addresses more organs being helped to people with need. So what if the patient is unable to purchase the said organ? So the organ moves to the next prioritized person, which is able to purchase it. And next, they talked about how these organs will be distributed through proper channels. Interesting, but when you are regarding selling of organs, in the spirit of the Hippocratic Oath, which is first, do not harm, which every doctor has to swear upon, is embraced in the emphasis of care resting and protecting the interests of the donor, or in this case, the seller. So, and selling organs does not support this interest. So this shifts the balance of responsibility to the paying recipient, okay, the one that is receiving the organ. And also a point was also made that it helps both the seller and the buyer. So how is this possible when you're saying, okay, sorry, so how does it justify this? So how are they justifying this point? When like saying prices are losing, like, okay, look at it this way. When the selling of organs is legalized in years to come, organs will organs will be in abundance, considering how it's a justified way to earn quick cash. So people will be donating it. And like the government has said, people have 2 kidneys. They can afford to do that. And so when that happens, regardless of how in need of more organs in the future, the demand for it will increase as well as the supply for it. And in a sense, it lowers the price of organs as a whole because there is enough of it. It is no longer it's no longer rare, which means when selling an organ is a common thing, donating the organ again would be a difficult thing to encourage. And I mention this because when the value is low, no one will be selling it. And when selling it is a common sense, donating the organ is no longer there. I'm sorry, the POI, I'll accept the second speaker's POI, and I will answer the third speaker's in later parts of my speech. And please be quick. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. You talked about how the price of organs would decrease, but we already gave out a policy of where the medical board has a fixed price and prices only go up due to inflation. So we don't think that point right there is valid, and still the sales of human organs stands.
To be honest, in response to that, it's impossible for a government to introduce a fixed price to a set of items because, like I said, things on the market are dependent on supply and demand. And regardless, like you can't just focus that Malaysia is fixing the price here and the China and US is fixing points here and there. If you actually like look into it, you understand this. So now finally, to answer the point the POI mentioned by the third speaker of how, I'm sorry, please repeat your point. The third speaker, is it possible for you to come back with your POI? I'll answer that.
Yeah, I asked if sure, inside government, we're giving these people who are in poverty a place for them to at least get an incentive. But what does side opposition do to help these people who are in poverty? Please answer that. Thank you.
Okay, so in regards to that, as mentioned, what we're trying to say is that what the government is trying to propose does not help either. And it was answered in the previous speech, in the previous part of the speech was mentioned. So just to my part of the speech, the negative effects of organ sales outweighs the possible benefits. And so people should not be allowed to organs. And that's why this motion should not be passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The House will now rest for 3 minutes to allow our members to prepare their reply speeches. And the time starts now.
Ya, ya. Kat mana? Satu minit ah. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, okay, alright, alright. Internet saya jet tadi, tak ada stop. Nasib baik timer tak ada masalah.
All right, everybody in. Huh? Okay, now it is a time for the reply speech. We will start with the opposition, and I would like to call upon the Honorable Leader of Opposition to deliver his speech.
All right, testing, I'm here. Can you guys hear me? All right, am I audible? All right, nice. Thank you for the response, Government Second Speaker. So, all right. Members of the House, I'm here to summarize the cases of the government and the opposition and tell you why the opposition should win. Now let's start from the definition. The definition, both the opposition and both opposition and governments, we essentially agree on the same thing. Now, let's look at government points. The government has made primarily 3 points. Number one, it benefits both sellers. Number two, it saves people from poverty. Number three, it crushes the black market. All 3 points, I believe, the opposition has rebutted. All 3 points, I believe, the opposition has rebutted. Now, for the opposition has made 8 points. One about ethics, one about incitement of murder, one about comparing the Iranian system and the Iranian status quo and the Malaysian status quo, and that selling your organ doesn't necessarily make you rich. The opposition also said that the system is susceptible to corruption. The sale of human organs downplays the values of one's life. And once again, it violates an act. It violates the 1947 Human Tissues Act and the Declaration of Istanbul on organ trafficking and transplant tourism, which basically means that Malaysia would have to explain to the entire world why they have violated an agreement that they have signed with the world. All these points, I believe, a majority of them have not been even addressed by the government. The government isn't speaking to the opposition. The government is speaking at the opposition. Now, once again, opposition has made 8 points. Government has made 3 points. All 3 of government's points have been rebutted. 8 of the opposition's points have not been rebutted. Only 2 of them addressed. Now, I would like members of the House. I know this is hard, but the government keeps bringing up examples of children, single mothers or poor people How sad, how sad. Look beyond that. Look at the points made by the opposition and points made by the government. Don't let your vision be clouded by emotion as the government wants you to be. Please look in use your brain, not your heart. Use your brain. Think of the points made and decide. Because in the end, I once again emphasize, the opposition must win because all of the points made by the government have been rebutted, or a majority of them. It's subjective. And all of the opposition's points, or a majority of them, once again, is subjective. I'm not an adjudicator. I will not say it was, have not been rebutted. That is all. Thank you, members of the House and Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of Opposition. Now, I would like to call upon the Right Honorable Second Minister of the Government to deliver his speech.
Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. It's amusing, honestly, for side government of how side opposition asks the panel and everyone here today to think according to your brain and not according to your don't feel anything, according to your heart and your feelings. Don't let emotions cloud your thoughts. So let me give a small scenario, true story. So the year is 2019, and a fellow debater of mine, he was supposed to be here today, but he passed away due to leukemia. So his name is Vedaviasan. He's my friend. Not to bring in an emotional aspect of the debate, but to give a true story based on true events of how he passed away, and we never know if he could have been saved if he got a bone marrow transplant. So how efficient is bone marrow transplant in Malaysia? Well, side opposition can say as much as they want, don't let emotions cloud your feelings. I lost a friend. The parent lost a son. Is it all because of the high rate of donating efficiency in Malaysia? Is that so high? Did he get a bone marrow transplant? Was he safe in the end? No. Is human organ sales legal in Malaysia? No. Let's leave that topic for now, as side opposition doesn't want to go to the emotional part of the debate. Still very amusing. So on our side, the sellers, okay, first we would like to stress, not all citizens are going to be money-minded as what side opposition thinks. Madam Speaker, if you were to hear the news that tomorrow the human organ sales is to be legalized in Malaysia, you have a perfect life, you have a healthy lifestyle, yeah? You wouldn't go and stand in the line and want to donate your kidney just to get 8,000 ringgit to buy a new iPhone X. No, that's not everyone's mindset. We are talking about the poor, ladies and gentlemen, the people who are desperate, who don't have money, who are in need, who need to put food on the table for tomorrow, for their children. All this debate, side opposition comes up and says, what we bring out is not relevant. We are not a responsible government. Points have been rebutted. Well, in the reply speech, why didn't you say how you rebutted our points? Did side of Madam Speaker, panel, and members of the floor, how did side opposition suggest alternatives? What will side opposition do if they don't legalize sales of human organs? Don't tell me side opposition is just going to leave the fact that people are going to keep dying because of the lack of and insufficiency of organs. Don't tell me you're not going to help people who are suffering from poverty. Are you going to stay silent? Be it side government or side opposition, that one major thing that you have to do in today's debate is solve status quo. You haven't even proved to us why status quo has no problem at all. You haven't proved to us why we shouldn't legalize it. All you come up saying is comparing Iran's system to Malaysia's system. What alternative are you bringing? What are you suggesting so that you can tell side government we don't have to legalize these sales? You haven't brought up anything significant. Well, we have said why we want to legalize. We said we help cause the deterrence of the black market. We help save lives. If you think about ethics so much, we think about humanity on our side. Humanity is important. You don't want to let 21,000 people die waiting for organ donations, which will come in what projected 8 to 9 months. And out of that 21,000 people, 20,000 people are just going to die waiting for the organs. There were so many things that side opposition should have told of how they will handle the black market if there was no significant competition from the white market. They didn't say how they would save lives of people waiting for organ donations. They didn't talk about the financial status of people and how they would help people suffering from poverty compared to our world where we propose human organ sales. My time is up, ladies and gentlemen. 4 minutes and I can't talk much about what side government has done, but I can say what side opposition has failed to do. And if you do think humanity still exists and we are in the 21st century and we have to be realistic, please do stand with side government. I assure you humanity will continue to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Second Minister of the Government. Now we will allow time for the adjudicators to discuss, to announce the winners.
Ini such an insan.
Cikgu. Saya punya saya punya mouse tak ni, saya tak boleh nak left. Oh ya kah? Saya punya laptop hang lah. Macam mana nak buat ni? Masa tak pakai kan? Lepas tu ni saya tak nak boleh live ke tak? Alright, okay. I really
try. Let's just try.
Okay. All right. See you. Post technical is here.
Okay, I have the result here. Okay, members of the House, it is thus declared and stated here that the House readily accepts the motion. Okay, and the best speaker for today's debate is second speaker of the government team, Mr. Linkeshwar Anak Lelaki Muthukumaran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Madam Speaker, thank you.
Okay, congratulations to the winner.
Yeah, it was a good debate. We thank the government side for the great debate. We also thank the adjudicators and the speaker and members of the floor.